Hi guys, welcome to the channel. This is Perpetuality. Special video today comparing two limited edition watches from Seiko. And I have here, under this elaborate packaging, is the SLA039. Now this was released about last year, and it is significant to Seiko. It actually harkens back to the 1968 monoblock dive watch monster that set the precedence for technology for Seiko in dive watches. Now, though they were late to the game, this watch was as important to Seiko as, and I've said this before, the Submariner to Rolex. Capable of 300 meters of water resistance back then in the late 60s was a big deal. Now, I've always wanted to compare and contrast limited edition watches from Seiko from the different price points, and I have here the 140th anniversary, the SPB213 or the 62 MAS. This is my own personal watch to compare. From $1,500 all the way up to $6,000, a high end of that. What are you getting for your money? Let's find out. Fundamentally, these watches are very different in their movements and also in their execution. It makes sense. I'll leave the specifications of these watches on the screen here for you guys. I won't bore you guys with the details. Just know that the almost $5,000 price difference between both watches are down to the finishing, the case, and also the movement. The SLA039 has a high-grade, high-beat movement that beats at 36,000 vibrations per hour, and it is a movement that we have seen in Grand Seiko previously. It is the 8L55 here. In Grand Seiko, it's the 9 series movement. The spec sheet only tells half the story. The other part of the story is how these watches wear, and the SLA039 is by no means a small watch, 44.8 millimeters wide, but more importantly, 51.4 millimeters lug-to-lug length, which means on a wrist as small as mine, 6¼ inch in circumference, it's reaching the limits of what I can wear normally. However, it's not unbearable and does have wrist presence. The SPB213 on the other hand is actually more compact at 40.5 millimeters wide, and a lug-to-lug length of 48 mil makes it an extremely comfortable piece to wear. Though the lugs are flat and the case lays a little bit more flat on the wrist than the SLA039, it still, to me, is one of the most compact wearing comfortable dive watches from Seiko. Every company has their own kind of marketing word for the steel that they use, but this ever-brilliant steel that Seiko uses is by no means a marketing ploy. It is actually the name for the most corrosion-resistant steel in the world. 1.7 times more resistant on the Pern scale than any other steel, this steel here actually takes on a brilliant white hue. And you know that it actually is quite unique to Seiko because they've gone ahead and done full Zaratsu polishing to the case. The sharp angles, the sharp lines that go onto the case, and that flat flank at the bottom of the case are all very, very much a Seiko trademark. And I do feel like the way this reflects light is remarkable. I've not seen another steel that has held a finishing as good as this ever-brilliant steel. Now, annoyingly, Seiko has decided to give the SLA039 a rubber strap. You can argue that's true to its heritage because the original actually came on a black rubber strap with the similar waffle patterning that you see here. It is a nice strap. It actually does not attract lint at all. It's one of the best I've handled. It does have the thicker spring bars meant for professional use, and I feel like the hardware that's been used on this particular strap also benefits from that same ever-brilliant steel. Also, the finishing is superb, faceted edges on the buckle. I do feel like this is high quality. Now, the previous owner who had this watch, Ryan, really put this to task, and you can see there are scratches on it. Now, with the box and all this elaborate packaging, all that is great stuff. We can talk about the different details of the case, etc. But coming back to the way that these watches wear, the rubber strap is actually supremely comfortable. I found in my experience that the strap, though being a 19mm strap, it actually offers a balance to that larger 44.8mm case. It shrinks it down actually. Though I do wish it was 20mm so I can use my own straps. You might be thinking it's bizarre to compare such different watches because there's almost a $5,000 difference between both of them. But mind you, they are limited edition watches. And for the 140th anniversary, Seiko has done a trilogy of white dial, blue bezeled watches, from the Sharp Edge GMT to the 62 MAS reissue that you see here, and also to the Astron. Now, the case of this watch is essentially the same as the SPB213 I owned, 40.5mm wide, and it is 316L steel with hardened diashield coating on top. There is a fine Zaratsu line that separates the top half and bottom half of the case, and this is mostly steel. Now mind you, the diashield coating allows this watch to be a little bit more resistant to wear, but the unfortunate part is that it actually takes on a light brown hue on the steel. Now, Seiko has done well to give us a bracelet for this watch. That was my previous complaint with the 147, and it is a good bracelet. There are 3 pieces that make up the links, and it does not taper from 20mm. The clasp itself is a fold-over mechanism, and with a double locking button press to unlock the clasp, you'll see here it is made out of solid steel. It is confidence inspiring, it does not rattle around. There are 4 points of micro adjustments to get the comfort you want on the wrist. Now, the thing about this particular system, though it is a nice bracelet with solid end links, I feel like the area that Seiko could have improved upon is this half link extension or diverse extension. The way you unlock it is underneath that fold over clasp. It's hard to get to. I couldn't pry it open with my finger. Now, you could rip a fingernail out probably trying to do it, but all in all, this is a wonderful bracelet, and I'm just happy that Seiko did not increase the price substantially when they gave us this bracelet along with this watch. Now, how does it wear? And I'm happy to say that on the wrist with the bracelet, it does wear comfortably, although it is heavier than the SPB147 I owned, being mostly steel. I still do believe that the strength, the real good features of this watch is in its wearability, and if you're smaller wristed, you'll love this watch. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking that, okay, how good can the bezel be really? It's just a Seiko diver. But this one is a good one. It's 120 clicks, ceramic, and it has pretty much the best feeling detents from click to click that I've experienced, and that is nipping at the heels of the Rolex Submariner. It's much better than the Seamaster. I'd argue to say that this is one of the nicest bezels on the dive watch, under $10,000. There is a Lume pip at 12 o'clock too, and on a macro level, it is sharp and clean. When we talk about Seiko, the dial quality of these watches are usually quite superior to their competitors, and that's because of the area that Seiko pays the most amount of attention to, all the way up to Grand Seiko, and that's no exception here with the SLA039. In fact, the dial quality on this dive watch, I would say, is one of the best under $10,000. Good reason why is just down to its color and the finishing of the hands and the finishing of the indices. First, the color. It's a soft blue. Now, it's not something that's punching out at you and grabs attention. It's deep, dark, and rich, and it takes on a very nice quality. It almost appears black in some light. The indices are finished with micro striations. Even on the circular indices for the hours, they have concentric circles, and they catch light on every facet. The 12 o'clock indicator is large, pronounced, and it is beautiful to look at. The way that it bounces light around is superior to any other dive watch I've experienced. The date window also has a bit of an iridescent color to it. Under certain light, there's a bit of a rainbow flash. It's cut almost like a gem. Every SLA039 is finished and completed by the Shizu Kuishi studio. That is Grand Seiko's proprietary studio. The hand finishing is superior. You can see there's beveled edges on these sword-like hands, and the hand stack is extremely tight. The only area of improvement is I wish the stoplight seconds hand reaches to the outer extremities of the dial. It is faithful to the 6159, however. Crown knurling is pronounced, and it is easy to get a purchase onto the crown. I think the overall execution is really quite well put together. This dive watch is impressive. The SPB213 is special because it is one of the 140th anniversary watches that get this special white dial. And now, when we talk about white and how it appears to be white on camera, it's more opaline in person. It has a bit of a sunburst effect to it, it dances on the silver side. The indices are all pretty much stamped on the dial. And as you can see, the seconds hand is actually blue. It's not heat treated blue, but I believe it actually is painted blue. I couldn't find any info to confirm otherwise, but at this price point it makes sense. Now, the overall execution, the dial printing, has been proven to be tremendously sharp under my macro lens. Even the hand finishing, where it's beveled, brushed on the top surface, and then high polished on the second half, seemed to be very well done. The date window, the date lines up perfectly within the date window, and that's usually the first area that I look at. The indice that is attached to the date is there for that ISO certification. Now mind you, the hand stack and the execution of the overall dial quality makes me feel like this watch does punch a little bit above its weight. The bezel's actually blue, but 40% of the time it appears to be black. Under subtle lighting, it almost takes on a darker tone, and that's part of the excellence of this bezel. It is actually a 120 click bezel. The feeling of it is quite substantial and impressive. My only gripe with the bezel is that I wish it was ceramic. It appears to look like it is ceramic, and it even feels like it's ceramic, but it is Seiko's hardened steel with their proprietary DiaShield coating. Now, if you're okay with that, then you're getting a very tremendous watch for the money. That does, I feel like, overall the bezel quality and the feeling of it does match up to a watch that's more expensive. When I set out to make this video, I was thinking, talking about Seiko's limited edition is sure enough to compare both of these watches from the different price points. Even though it seems ridiculous, it's to get the idea across that, why is it that they are going for what they are? And are they worthy of that title of being limited edition? The SLA039 is only limited to 1,100 pieces, and by that measure, it's harder to get. For the money, it's much more watch than the SPB213. It has tremendous quality behind it. It's a historic heritage watch. The 213, on the other hand, is something that is refreshing, a modern take on the 62 MAS. That white dial is more opaline silver in person, and it gives me the feeling of my Oyster Perpetual 39 in white that I love so much. Now, if you have to ask me, if both these watches are worth their weight and the value that they're worth, I'd say to the diehard Seiko fanatic and who loves the history, the 39 is tremendous. To the person who loves the aesthetic of the 213, it's a great watch to buy. If this video ended up giving you some helpful information comparing what a limited edition $1,500 dive watch would be to a nearly $7,000 dive watch that's historic to Seiko, then this video has achieved its mission. I'll show you the lume here. The 39, the SLA039, is quite bright. The lume application is well balanced. There is generous amount of lume material, and it is Seiko's LumeBrite on the dial. Longevity is pretty good too, and as you can see here, as I bring down the exposure, it shines quite brightly. It takes on more of a blue hue. The overall legibility of the lume is good. The 213, however, though it is using Seiko's LumeBrite, it does glow with that similar color, that blue-green color. I feel like the longevity doesn't last nearly as long as the SLA039, and I think that's just because there's less lume material on the dial. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, but it could be better. Now, if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate you hitting the like button. It'll push the video out there, and consider subscribing. I'll catch you in the next one.